YouTube, what's going on? It's Mesa back at it with some Destiny 2. Alright folks, what has changed? What has changed in terms of what weapons I like the most within Destiny 2 since Warmind has hit, since Season 3 has hit, but also since 1.1.4 it changed pretty much all the weapons and the way we use them. So rather than doing just a top 5, maybe best exotics, or a top 5, or top 10 for that matter, best legendaries, let me just go through in this video all the weapons that I like to use for the various activities within the game. So before we kick this off, I gotta give a disclaimer. I do not have any of the Escalation Protocol weapons. I did get everything from OSPREY, the new Vanguard weapons, new stuff from Banshee, and of course I don't have the Claymore, so I'm not including that. The Escalation Protocol weapons, I really just want the submachine gun, okay? I used it at Bungie Studios, I used the shotgun and sniper at Bungie Studios. Will they replace what I'm gonna show you today? Probably not. The submachine gun I see as being more of a fun gun. The sniper is cool, but I still love one particular sniper in general. That's legendary. You'll see that in a second. And as for the shotgun, I don't really use shotguns that much. Even though they got a big PvE buff, not really a big fan of shotguns. So let's talk about power weapons. So my favorites are the BRAYTECH OSPREY, the Borealis, D.A.R.C.I, Tractor Cannon, Telesto, Sleeper Simulant, and also the Silicone Neuroma. Also, the Tarantula, or Tarantula as I like to call it, that's a really fun one too. When it comes to swords, I'm always using this complex solution. I don't know why. I like it in PvE and I like it in PvP. Worldline Zero I like, but I'd rather use an exotic in my other slots rather than have this thing equipped. So I'd rather just keep my complex solution equipped and use some sort of exotic for my other slots. But the BRAYTECH OSPREY, this is what I use the most. I use this in the Raid, I use this in the Raid Lair, I use this for the Heroic Strike playlist, I use this for Nightfalls, I use this for Escalation Protocol. There's not one activity that I don't use. I even use it for PvP. Okay, this is fun for noob tubing people. But to me, in my opinion and in my review, this is better than Sins of the Past. And I say that because on paper, it has the same blast radius as Sins of the Past, but you've got better velocity. Now granted, mine is a masterwork with velocity on it, but you can kind of fiddle around with this thing and actually get a little bit of a less blast radius. You can get more of a blast radius, yeah, slightly more blast radius, but the way I have it set up, I like to keep it the same blast radius as Sins of the Past, but with some good velocity on it. So love this thing. I swap the burns out nonstop, depending on what the weekly Heroic Strike playlist is, or the Nightfall. Next up would have to be the Borealis, and the reason why I like this one so much is mainly for the Heroic Strike playlist. So depending on what burn it is, I can swap the burn on the weapon. But more importantly, this thing for a 5-round magazine, this thing's got a hell of a lot of impact. So you combine the fact that you can swap elements on the fly, whatever element it is, and if you have heavyweight as a modifier for that day for the Heroic Strike playlist, this thing is going to do so much damage. Love the Borealis, and I got mine as a masterwork. Next up would be good old D.A.R.C.I, and I have the masterwork version, which greatly increases its stability. What's not to like about this thing? This thing, one, it doesn't move because of the stability, and this thing does so much damage. They give this thing such a buff in the last update. So Personal Assistant, aim at an enemy to view its health and other critical information in the scope, but this thing does a lot more damage. So when Personal Assistant is active, this weapon has better target acquisition and deals significantly more precision damage. So they really buffed that precision damage. So for boss fights, if it is arc burn, and as the time of recording this video, I am using this in the Heroic Strike playlist. Next up we have the Sleeper Simulant. Now, is it as good as it was in good old D1? I'm going to say it's pretty close, but I don't really use it as much as I would like to, I feel like. It's got 2 rounds in a magazine. I'm pretty sure in D1 it had 3 to 4, so I feel like I'm constantly reloading this thing. But I will use this on the weekly Heroic Strike playlist if it is solar. If we do the Nightfall and we do select solar burn, you know, depends on the strike. Sometimes we like void, sometimes we like arc, sometimes we like solar. But one of the interesting things is, I don't know if you guys notice this, but if you're in front of a boss, sometimes you don't always want to actually shoot the boss right in the crit spot by aiming down sight. If you shoot at the floor, all those little beams coming out of this thing, they're going to ricochet up and do a ton of damage. So a lot of people, they don't actually shoot the boss in the crit spot, they shoot at the floor in front of the boss, and all those beams will shoot up at the boss. Next up is the good old Tractor Cannon, and as ugly as it is, this thing is awesome now. I grinded mine out to be a masterwork, so I get that increased ammo reserve. But yeah, whenever we do the weekly Heroic Strike playlist, if it's Void Burn, if we select Void for the Nightfall Prestige, and if we're doing Escalation Protocol, we always have at least one person running this thing. They're going to hit the boss, they're going to get that debuff on the boss, I think it's 5 seconds, I know it's not 10 seconds, for a short time, basically, where they're susceptible to void damage. So one person will hit the boss, next thing you know, everyone's hitting with Slova bombs, grenades, anything void, you're going to melt that boss really quickly. Love the tractor cannon. Next up would have to be Telesto, and I can't tell which ornament I like better. But this thing is absolutely awesome in, well, two situations. One, if it's void for the weekly Heroic Strike playlist, or Escalation Protocol. Because when you have someone using the tractor cannon to give that boss or yellow bar or whatever a debuff, you hit them with the Telesto, and it will just absolutely melt them. Shout out to my friend Rocco. What he does is when the Shadow Rifts appear, right before the night comes out, he puts up a barricade with his Titan, and then he shoots the barricade with the Telesto shots. And those Telesto shots stick to the barricade, and then they explode as soon as the night comes out. And usually someone will hit them with the tractor cannon. They got the void debuff, and they will just melt. I'll touch briefly on swords. I gotta admit, I don't really use the Worldline Zero a whole lot. I use Complex Solution. The reason being is because, one, I need to level this thing up or infuse some more things into it, but I'm probably going to want to use an exotic more often than not when it comes to my kinetic or power. It's a cool sword, I like it, it's fun, but when it comes to sorting, whether it's PvE or PvP, I'm probably going with Complex Solution. Now, I still love my Silicone Neuroma. I need to infuse this thing with some more snipers if I can actually get them to drop, but I love this thing. This is a Nightfall Strike exclusive reward. Now, you got snapshot sights, you got opening shot, accurized rounds, flared magwell. Folks seem to love this in PvP, but I like it in PvE because, one, it dropped as a masterwork, so I got a little bit more of a reload speed. Reload's not that great. I probably should re-roll this thing for some better range or some other stats, but I love this thing. It's got 3 rounds in a magazine, and it's got a lot of impact. And if I don't want to use my Borealis or D.A.R.C.I, I've got a really good legendary sniper, and I could just change the burn on it. Now, when it comes to linear fusions, I love the Tarantula, or I like to call it the Tarantula. I like it because it has snapshot sights. You know, I was always a big Man of War guy. Loved that fusion rifle for the first few months of D1. But you know what? That thing, the handling on that thing was terrible. But when you use this thing, the aim down sight is really, really quickly. So try this thing out. I believe I got this from Asher Mir, I think. No, Man of War comes from Asher Mir. I don't recall where I got this thing from. You got Particle Repeater if you want more stability. Projectile Fuse, which I go for so I get more range. And this thing has a precision frame. Really good linear fusion rifle. Now moving on to energy weapons, I don't think anything is going to dethrone my maybe Graviton or maybe Skyburners might dethrone it, but my favorite on the throne is going to be the Manananan SR4. You guys have known I've loved this thing for ages. Explosive payload, lightweight frame. I go with steady rounds. I rolled mine as a masterwork to give me some more range. I love this in PvP. I waste people with it, and I love it in PvE. But the ones that come to a close second or third would be Graviton Lance or Skyburner's Oath. Obviously, if it's Void Burn, I'm going to go with Graviton, and if it's Solar Burn, I'm going to go with Skyburner's Oath. But I gotta say, Skyburner's, man, lately, this thing has been a lot of fun. Not so much when you're actually shooting, aiming down sight, but when you're hip-firing this thing. This is my go-to gun in the Leviathan right now when doing Leviathan Prestige or regular Leviathan. You get bonus damage to Cabal with this thing. It's going to break those shields on them. And when you hip-fire this thing, you fire these slugs that they kind of track. Like, you can't just shoot it far away and it's going to track and add. No, you got to be kind of close, but it shoots really fast. It does really good damage and great for the raid and great for anything Cabal related. Graviton Lance, still one of my favorites, man, for PvE and PvP, whether it's Void Burn or whether it's not Void Burn. I don't use it in a raid. I'm going to use Skyburner's Oath. But for Escalation Protocol, since we're doing tractor cannon debuffs on all the bosses, I'm using this thing. If I'm not using the Manananan, but this thing comes in handy. But man, the way that they changed this thing into a scout rifle, in my opinion, it feels like a scout rifle. A 2-round burst, those explosions that come after, they start doing damage to adds. When it's Void Burn or Void Singe for the Heroic Strike playlist, yeah, this is what we use. And for the Prestige Nightfall, most of the time, we're setting it to Void, we're throwing on Heavyweight, and we're going in with Graviton Lances. Next up, we have the Vacuna SR4, and I got this from Anna Bray. So it's very similar to the Manananan in terms of its rate of fire, its magazine, its impact, but this thing's got a lot more range. But I think the range stat on the Manananan is bugged because even though mine's a masterwork for the Manananan, I waste people in the Crucible from very far away. But what's interesting about this thing is that instead of explosive rounds, you have Dragonfly in this thing. So precision kills create an elemental damage explosion. Now they did buff Dragonfly in the last update, so I need to put a little bit more time in this thing. Will I use this over my Manananan? Probably not, but I think in certain PvE situations, I might test this out and just use it for fun, but I'm still going to use the Manananan over this thing. When it comes to auto rifles, I don't know what it is. There's nothing that special about the Prosecutor Prosecutor, except for the fact that I just love this thing. It doesn't even have that great perks like hipfire grip. Do I need that on an auto rifle? Tap the trigger, slideways, it's got a precision frame. I don't know, just something about this, whether it's PvE or PvP, I love this thing. I rolled mine as a masterwork to give me a little bit more range, and no, I'm not using Uriel's gift anymore, or even positive outlook for that matter. Just something about the way this gun sounds, fires, maybe the aim assist, I don't know. I like this thing over all the other auto rifles. I find myself using the inaugural address a lot. In PvE activities, not so much PvP. I'm not very good in the aim department, and I'd much rather use my Manananan or my Graviton Lance. But adaptive frame, you got outlaw, and you have kill clip, so you get that critical hit, you do the quick reload, and then you're gonna get some bonus damage after that kill. So the inaugural address, yeah, I like this thing for PvE, not so much PvP, mainly because of my bad aim. Last, I just want to touch on this real quick. So we've got the BRAYTECH RWP. Well, this is the legendary version as we're making our way through the Polaris Lance quest. So it's not bad. I'm not blown away by it. It's a solar weapon. It's got a high impact frame. But even though it's got a high impact frame, it feels like it fires fast. It fires 150 rounds per minute. So high damage. You got Zen moments of causing damage with this weapon. It's going to increase its stability. And you gotta love triple tap. Rapidly landing precision hits. It's going to return 1 round to the magazine from reserves. When we get the actual Polaris Lance, I believe it's going to have all of these perks, except it's going to have, when you land 4 precision hits, the 5th shot, I believe, is going to be like a solar delayed blast or some sort of solar slug that's going to do an explosion after you get 4 precision hits. Moving on to the kinetics, well, I gotta say my number one for the fun factor has to be the Huckleberry. I only really use this in PvE activities. I'm not good with it in PvP because I'm terrible with submachine guns, but this one's a new archetype, 750 rounds per minute. The Escalation Protocol, that submachine gun, also 750 rounds per minute. Now mine's a masterwork, so it's got Ambitious Assassin, so overflow the magazine based on the number of rapid kills before reloading. So you get that combined with the second part of Ride the Bull, which is kills with this weapon, reload a portion of the magazine. You've got Rampage on it. This thing is just too much fun when you're taking out ads on patrol or in strikes. And for the most part, yeah, I'm going to say fun factor, that's my number one. Now, in terms of practical use, man, I still am non-stop using Better Devils, Nameless Midnight, and Origin Story. Really have not found anything else to replace these things. Origin Story, great auto rifle that's 450 rounds per minute with Rampage on it. You've got Nameless Midnight, a fast firing scout rifle. And I say fast in terms of it's not a high impact frame where it fires really slow. Not as fast as like the Purpose or Manananan, but pretty fast, and you have explosive rounds. And Better Devils, in my opinion, one of the best hand cannons in the game, although some people will say the Midnight Coup is better, but I like Better Devils more than I do the Midnight Coup. Better Devils adaptive frame hand cannon, mine is a masterwork with reload speed on it because I am a panic reloader, and it's got explosive rounds. Now, if I'm not using the Better Devils, I'm going to go with Midnight Coup, right? Because you have Outlaw and you've got Rampage. So even though this thing does less damage, it's a lightweight frame, when you get Rampage to stack and you get Outlaw, you're constantly reloading, you're doing good damage, you're getting Rampage to proc. Yeah, this thing is still, well, I would say, is it better than Better Devils? And that's redundant. Better than Better Devils? I'd say it's a close tie, but I prefer, my personal opinion is Better Devils, and especially in the raid because I want to break those Cabal shields. But who knows? I see everyone using in the Spire of Stars, they seem to be using the Midnight Coup. Vigilance Wing, I am still using in PvP. Yes, I am one of those annoying Vigilance Wing spammers. Not as much as I use Graviton a lot more than I do the Wing. But Vigilance Wing, it's a 5-round burst, so you can 3-burst someone, and you don't have to land all your crits. That's why I like it. I have bad aim, so I could start laying into someone's body in the Crucible, and eventually some of those shots will reach the head, and I will down that Guardian. So I usually run this with either the Manananan or with the Prosecutor. Still love the Prosecutor for PvP aside from PvE. Crimson is going to be another one of my favorites, and that's for PvE or PvP. The buff they gave to this thing, and also the fact that you can make this into a masterwork, look at the range in this thing. The impact is ridiculous, the range is ridiculous. I love it in PvE because you're constantly getting kills and getting those rounds back to your magazine if you get that critical kill. And in PvP, it's pretty damn good. I need to get better with it in PvP. I'm still not that great with it, but once you get used to the recoil pattern, which is not much, look at the stability on this thing, you can waste people at medium, even sometimes long range. But I see a lot of people running around with this in the Crucible. Then lastly, we have the Manananan and we have the Service Revolver. Now the Service Revolver, this is more for a fun factor. So this is a precision frame hand cannon with Outlaw. This is fun in patrols. Would I use it in PvE or PvP? Not in particular. You might want to try it in PvP if you're good with hand cannons. I'm not very good with hand cannons. That's why I use Better Devils, because of the explosive rounds. But pretty fun hand cannon you can get from Commander Zavala as you rank up in Vanguard. Lastly is going to be the Purpose, which is basically the Manananan except a kinetic version. Lightweight, 200 rounds per minute, 15 in the mag, and it has explosive rounds. So that's going to do it for this video, folks. I wanted to do a top whatever type video, but I'm like, you know what? There's too many guns that I like right now, and I really want to hear from you guys in the comments section. Has really anything changed for you? Are you using the same weapons? Have things changed for you? Are you using some of the new exotics? Are you using some of the INAUGURAL weapons? Maybe the Escalation protocol weapons? Let me know in the comment section. And guys, leave me a hashtag made it to the end if you did make it to the end, and do me a favor, drop a like in this video only if you see fit. Follow me on Twitter at Mesa Sean. Check out my stream, usually known as on YouTube, and that's it. I am out of here like Vladimir.